Okay, I think everybody is here, so I will call the meeting of the General Purposes Committee meeting to order. Can I just remind everybody to mute your mics? We were getting a little bit of feedback there for a second, so everybody could mute their mics. May I have a motion on the minutes of the meeting of the GP? Moved and seconded. Any errors or omissions to tell me about? All right, I will call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. That brings us to Councilor Green's motion, Women's Advisory Committee. This is basically just a staff referral. Kelly, do you want to move your motion?
Certainly, I'd like to move it as written.
I'm sorry, move it as written. Okay, and it's seconded. It's pretty self-evident. Is there anything you want to add?
No, just that I think that this is important work that we do. We have a multicultural advisory committee, and I think that this would be a very good addition to the city.
All right, Councilor McNulty.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have no problem. I seconded it to move. I believe that we should have this kind of thing. I would wonder if in the motion, Your Worship, or maybe staff take it under direction. We do have a women's resource committee, and I think we should be consulting them to see if they've done any work in this area as well, and what their stance is, and we could maybe learn something there.
Yeah, we'll take the staff will take that under advisement.
Take that under advisement.
Unless I hear anything.
I don't want to see a group get undermined when they're doing a lot for women in Richmond, of women of everywhere. So I just think that it would be, if nothing else, a courtesy. Okay, thank you. I'll be supporting it.
Okay, put your hand down, Bill. Councilor McPhail.
Thank you, Your Worship. I will support this referral. And I think it's appropriate that we discuss it today, as October is Women's History Month in Canada, a time to celebrate women and girls from our past, our present, and who are contributing to a better, more inclusive Canada. This year's theme, Because of You, celebrates women and girls in Canada who have made and continue to make a lasting impact on our country. And, I first learned about the SCM Standing Committee on Increasing Women's Participation in Municipal Government in 2013 when I attended the SCM when it was in Vancouver. So we know that the Federation of Canadian Municipalities has been looking at this for a long time, actually since 2004. They had a consultation process then, and it's evolved into the Toward Parity Municipal Politics Framework of 2018 and 2022. And I think it's especially important that we discuss this now because the pandemic has already highlighted many inequities in our society. Some groups have been disproportionately affected by loss of income, housing, food security, and other challenges during this time. We've heard anecdotally and in the local media how COVID-19 has been hard for everyone, but especially for women. And I think there's some really interesting data that staff could look at. Like I found it really interesting looking at the 2016 census data that women outnumber men in our population by approximately 9,000 or 4.5%. But what was really interesting to me was that women outnumber men in every age category over the age of 24. So what does that mean?
All right.
So I think that, anyways, I'll stop there. I think that I hope, as Councillor McNulty said, I hope it's referred to that committee, and there's other committees, the RCSNC, REAC, and perhaps the Economic Advisory Committee for their review, comments, and suggestions. So that's all for now. Thank you.
Councillor Al.
I will support the motion, but I would like to ask Councillor Green to elaborate further. What do you envision to be the mandate and function of this group? So what do you have in mind in terms of the function and the mandate of this advisory committee?
Mayor, are we okay to?
Well, we're really just talking about the advisability of a referral. So, briefly.
I think it's important that we have a Women's Advisory Committee for a few reasons. One is it allows us to have a forum for women to learn and lead with each other in a safe environment, these opportunities are harder to come by for women. And when you are racialized or have different abilities, it becomes even harder. So one is having a forum for leadership and learning about civic electoral processes. And the other is, I really believe that we need to have somewhere where we can refer policies that affect our populations differently. So, for example, our built environments are typically built, by men and for men, because women travel through cities, for example, in a really different way. They're typically caregivers. They have different kinds of errands and things that they're doing in the day than just the more average getting up, going to work, coming home at the end of the day. So there are lots of different intersections and things that we can look at, but I think that the staff referral is a good place to start. There's other cities with women's advisory, and I'd be more interested in knowing what other cities are doing as well.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Councillor Day, last word.
Much, Councillor Green. Excellent initiative. I think this should have happened a long time ago. I just want to make sure that staff are going to include things like mentorship as part of the goals. You know, as Councillor Al alluded to, what is the mandate? And I think mentorship has to be a big one. And I'd like to include ex-city councillors in consultation on this. I think they could be really valuable to the story. And then, of course, most of the all of the advisory groups have got women on them. So why not put it out to all of them for a brief comment so we know what they see as being the mandate? Thank you.
All right. So we'll call the question then on the motion. All those in favor? Anybody opposed? That's carried. Next item is the EBCM Community Emergency Preparedness Fund application. To staff, anything to add to the report?
Mr. Chair, I have nothing further to add.
All right, someone want to move it? So it's moved and seconded. Discussion. All those in favor? Anybody opposed? That's carried. Now the next one, the soil use, we'll get any comments that we've got from staff. Then the various parties, a number of parties are going to be joining us. And we may be hearing from a delegation of them. So it says, Carly Williams, do you have anything to add to your report?
Nothing to add.
Okay, then let's hear from the proponent. Who lets them in? Okay, so just while Claudia is doing that. Okay, what? All of a sudden we're getting all kinds of echo. Okay, but we're getting echo. Okay, we've got, so that must, I think that echo is coming from the delegation. So we're going to ask the delegation.
Can't hear you.
You cannot hear me. Can all of you hear me? Councillor Day, I think it's, Councillor Day, it's your equipment doing it to you again. So we have the agent for the property owner, who is Barry Ma. Daniel Lem.
Can't hear you.
Well, I don't know what to do about it. Take the delegation out.
For those that are in council, I suggest that just the chamber audio be on and any PCs or laptops in chambers.
I don't think it's coming from in chambers. Sorry? Yeah, it's not us.
One microphone.
Now, well, I'm on mute. Someone has muted me.
And I can hear you just fine.
I get an iPad and I get a tremendous echo from you.
Just 1 minute. Just hold it.
Can you hear now? Okay. The problem is that they have multiple lines coming in from council chambers.
Okay. Okay.
Sorry. Your worship, I believe yes, I think it's resolved now. I think the issue is that there's multiple lines coming in from council chambers, and so only the audio bridge should be opened, which I've now done.
Can everybody hear me? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I'm just going to clarify this because I think we've had to cut out the delegations, but just hang on, wait for Claudia. So do we still have delegations?
Yes, we moved them into a waiting room so we can bring them in again and try it again.
You're going to try this again?
If you would like us to, yes. We've moved them into a virtual waiting room.
Yes, but have we fixed what the problem is with them? Okay, the delegations are in a waiting room. We're going to try this one more time. If we have the same results, we will have to just simply cut them off. So bring them in, Claudia. It always seems to work on paper till you get to the actual event. Yeah. And it doesn't do anything. So what's the story?
The delegation is now into the meeting.
The delegation is now into the meeting. Apparently not. But we will suggest for future reference that they do that. So do we have the delegation here? Barry Ma, Daniel Lemon Wah, Thomas Elliott, Ming Wu.
Hello, Daniel Lamhunwa here. I'm connected and I can hear you. Are you able to hear me?
Okay, is there just you, or is there? Sorry?
Barry Ma. I'm online here too.
Okay, what about Thomas Elliott? Are you online? Okay, what about Ming Wu? Okay, so we've got Barry Ma, Daniel Lemon Wah, and Ming Wu. Okay.
And Thomas Elliott is in line too.
Sorry, who?
Thomas Elliott is online as well.
Okay, Thomas Elliott. So there's the four of you. We have 5 minutes for delegations. We have the report. I assume you've read the report. Is there some issue you want to address, or do you just want to await questions from any counselors?
Go ahead, Barry.
Oh, okay, it's Barry Ma. I have a short description of what's been going on with this project. So I would like a couple of minutes just to present.
Okay, well,
if that's okay.
You've got 5 minutes between you, so go ahead.
Okay. When do we start? Now?
Yep.
Okay. Sorry, I'm Barry Ma. I'm with Westwood Topsoil. I'm the contractor, or will be the contractor on this project. Also here is Ming Wu, who would be the farmer, and his son Kevin to interpret if we need. Unfortunately, the owner of the property, Mr. Zhang, is not in country. He went back to visit in China over the winter, and because of COVID-19, he hasn't been able to return. But Ming Wu has permission to represent him in this manner. So just a quick note who I am. I'm the second generation owner-operator of Westwood Topsoil. My father started the business here in Richmond in 1973 while working for the city of Richmond. Noticing the topsoil was being dumped in the Richmond landfill, started this company to repurpose and recycle the soil. The last 20 years with me and the company, I've been working mostly on agricultural properties. With the prime objective, we save the soils, replace them on the farmland to improve farming conditions. And we work very closely with the utmost professionals. Up to now, all parties that involve Richmond, Delta, Surrey, of course the Agricultural Land Commission, all our projects have been completed, no negative reviews, no problems, no issues at all. I do have an agricultural background myself. I'm a third-generation farmer here in Richmond. My father was Ma Bing. He farmed 180 acres here in about 1910. Everything between Francis Road and Williams Road, from number 1 road to the dike, was his main farm. He also farmed the number 3 road in Cook and on Sea Island. We're continuing the farming, although we've moved to Delta. I am a bona fide farmer myself. This project, 8511 number 6 road, in 2012, Ming Wu contacted me, explaining he had a problem with the field he was trying to farm. So we had a meeting. After viewing the site at number 6 road, I noticed it was planted with blueberries. From my experience, it looked like everything was done properly. Plants were bedded, elevated with sawdust. There was a substantial drip irrigation system set up. But I could tell where the plants had died is most of the year they were underwater. The subject properties next door were all much higher. So after meeting with Mr. Ming Wu and Mr. Zhang, the owner, Mr. Zhang agreed to do whatever is needed to get his property back up farming. So I contacted professionals I had worked with in the past and brought in Mr. Bruce McTavish and Dr. Hubert Tominga. Some of you are probably well aware of them, and I think they have a very good reputation. The result of that is the application that's before you and the report that was made in 2012. To be brief, someone had mined all the existing peat moss out of the property. They replaced it with mill ends from a sawmill, which is not demolition. So it's all clean wood. It's all. They then capped it with approximately 30 centimeters of poor quality soil, and 30 centimeters isn't very much. But with Bruce McTavish and Dr. Tominga, a plan was developed. We actually spoke to the ALC representatives there, noticed about this job. They gave positive feedback, thought it would be very, very good to get this back, into the farm community. After that, the application went into the city of Richmond, and here we are 8 years later, still waiting. Unfortunately, this application, when it was submitted, had been held up mainly due to staffing changes. The bylaws officers that were in looking after this folder kept changing. Every time there was a staff change, this file got lost. We'd have to reapproach, reinform everybody, get it rolling again, then there was another staffing change. Up until now, where we've got Mike Morin, he also didn't know anything about it, had to get him informed online, and here we are again. So, but this is the farthest it's gotten in 8 years.
All right, sorry?
So just the owner remains diligent. He spent a lot of money because City of Richmond is using Mr. McTavish as a consultant. We had to go get all new professionals and start all over again. The owner's paid all the bills. He's also willing to put a bond up and is really committed to getting this farming, whether it be blueberries or market vegetables or anything. He wants to get it producing again. The land as it sits is an absolute dead zone, in my opinion and many professionals. Unless it is remediated, it will never produce any food on that property, ever.
All right, I've got two hands that are up. I first of all want to know if they are questions for the delegation. So, Councillor Green, is that a question for the delegation? Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. On the Food Security and Ag Advisory Committee had asked that the lease with the farm operator would be 10 years in length. Is that something that is agreeable?
I believe it's already documented. It will be issued.
Super. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor McNulty, question of the delegation?
Yeah, I have one of the delegation and one of staff.
Well, only delegation right now.
I have one of the delegation. You made a comment earlier about having soil that qualifies as class 2 or 3 or even 1. Where will that soil come from?
It's, of course, as you know, that soil is very hard to come by. It's going to have to come from multiple sites. We're going to have to source it as we go. We'd love to replace it with soil from Richmond, but as you know, soil isn't supposed to be removed from farmland. They're going to be small sites. There is very little or none or virgin soil, so we're going to have to source it from other jobs, other areas.
Thank you very much. My other questions, Your Worship, are to staff.
All right.
Okay, if I could, when the time comes.
Okay, Councillor Wolf, a question of the delegation?
Yes, I have two questions to the delegation.
Go ahead.
Thank you. The first one relates to the environmental sensitive area, which is outside of this subject property. So in the report on our page GP69, you can see that the ESA actually does come into the subject property on both sides, not the back, but on both sides, our map on page GP69. So my first question to the delegate is, what will that look like on the subject property where there's fill? Will it be going right up to that line? Will it be going right up to the property line? Will there be setback? Thank you.
I believe that might be a comment that might be a question for our agrologist, but I believe we are going up to the line and improving the irrigation, so all the water will be directed away from that area, any drainage.
Thank you. Unless there was another comment on that from the other delegate. If not,
go ahead.
Then my second question relates to the option 1, which is the removal of the wood waste. And in the report, it talks about that the disruption to that wood waste could lead to leachate or spreading. So I'm curious, when would be the best time to do that option? Would it be in the summer? And if so, that would likely be next summer. Is there a seasonal time for experts to do that type of a job?
I don't know if it would proceed if we went to that. The problem, the suggestions that we had were to cap it. Were probably the most successful. In our report, there is, they did all the testing, the groundwater testing for leachates, where they take all the soil samples, put fish in it, make sure it doesn't harm anything. Removing it would be such a massive job I don't think it would happen.
Then to follow up on that, if a truck were to come and deliver soil, and then it would be leaving empty, could it not take wood waste on the return trip to drop off? And maybe where would that type of wood waste be received? Could it be the same place where the soil operation is and be mixed into the next batch?
No, the only place. Oh, sorry.
Barry, is it all right if I chime in?
Yes, please.
Go ahead.
Excellent. To Councillor Wolf, via you, the chair, this is Thomas Elliott speaking. Those are actually two very good questions, three very good questions if you include the first one. I will answer the latter two and can answer the first if you would like me to, but we'll focus on the latter two. If removal of the wood residue in place were to be pursued by any landowner, not necessarily this one, it has potential to actually release leachate, that is contact water, that currently resides within that wood residue into the surrounding ditches, which are a component of the overall conveyance network that connects to sensitive fish habitat. And as such, any disturbance would disrupt the anaerobic state, more or less the very, very, very low decomposition and emission state of the materials in place, and result into a greater negative impact to the surrounding area, and specifically that site, as a result of that disturbance. Now, adding that to the very salient matter that any volume that is removed would simply have to be replaced with another material, it is a less than zero-sum game there. We wouldn't actually be coming out on top by pursuing disturbance and removal.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, your hand's still up, Michael. Councillor Steves.
I just want to say a few things. I think the reports are excellent. The analysis is excellent. I also want to say that Mobilization Farm was our next door neighbor and one of the very best farms in Richmond historically. But I do have a problem. And first, the fill work we had was illegal fill put in the 1980s. At that time, our soil was so strong, we didn't even allow them to bring soil in from Echo to put in Richmond soils. And that ranked us up. The soil contamination was taken away from us around about 10 or 15 years later because our soil was so strong.
Harold, I'm going to interrupt you here. We're just asking questions of the delegation as opposed.
I know what this is leading to my question.
Oh, okay.
So we're dealing with illegal fill, and it seems to me that we should be removing the fill. However, I think the substitution is not a bad one, but I'm concerned about more illegal fill going in. So the question I've got, back in May, we had an application came in, and we said you must have it from Richmond soils. We amended it to include Delta soils, and you have to have the soil tracker application and track it. Because what's happened back in 1984, when the soil went in, it probably went in without an application, and what we found over the decades is the truckers that work for you, even work for the city, will find these places to dump illegal soils. And on two occasions, I followed trucks. This is some but 8 or 10 years ago. Followed trucks. One was doing work for the city and was dumping soils illegally on a farm in Number 4 Road area, and I found another was dumping soil on a city road allowance that's in the agricultural land reserve. So you can't trust the truckers. So I want to know where the soil is coming from, and I want the truck followed when they put the fill in. I had another instance where they did it all legally on Sidaway Road, and when the farmer went to follow his land after he had legally filled it, he found they'd hidden very poor soil with plastic in it underneath. These were done by the truckers, not by the companies, especially the one that was the city was dumping illegal fill. So my question is, how are you prepared to track the soil? Where is it going to come from? In my opinion, it's still should be from Richmond, an application that the other people may brought in. So that's my question. Where's this oil coming from? Are you going to monitor the source and have somebody there watch the truck loader? Are you going to ride with a driver that's taking it there and having it done? Because that's our problem.
All right.
The plans are great.
Let's get a response.
Councillor Steve, I have done many of these in the past. Our source sites, we work very closely with them. Every load that we bring in has records, is recorded. We have the location. The soils are analyzed before they come to us to make sure there's no hydrocarbons and then that they're clean. Every load on our site is watched when it's dumped. And in the past, would we record every load to know the source? And of course, if they try to sneak anything in, they're never allowed to come back in. Not even a piece of asphalt.
Is it your trucks that take it from your site to the farm site then?
It's jobs that we a lot of times we hire them. We work with the other contractors, making sure the source of the materials coming through. We work with all the local contractors as well. We deal with Performance and Mathers, and they are very careful with our soils. And we will take as much from Richmond as we can. Unfortunately, there aren't those big projects anymore where there's that much soil coming off in one shot. So.
All right. Let's see. All right, so Harold, your hand is still up. Councillor Day.
Yeah, thank you very much. To the delegation, you mentioned that there's wood waste in there, and someone else put it there 38 years ago, and that it's going to be capped, and then you'll put the soil on top. But you also mentioned that if you move that wood waste, that leaching could happen to the ESA area. How do we know for sure that leaching won't happen anyhow into the food that is going to be produced on that property?
Daniel or Thomas?
All right, Councillor Day, through the chair. That's also a very good question. So mobilization of the primary constituents of concern from wood residue will be acidification or acidifying products, as well as tannins and some select heavy metals. When you look at what conditions under which those particular constituents of concern would become mobile, that is available for biologic uptake, that is classically in an acidifying environment. Now, fortunately, when things are in an anaerobic environment, they do not become acidified, and therefore the various constituents are more closely held to the organic fraction of that wood residue. Now, if we were to dewater the area, that would, of course, allow an anaerobic state to persist and would indeed start to mobilize some of those materials. And that is why allowing those materials to stay in place is actually a fairly good pathway forward. Now, your concern about uptake by plants is also a very good question. Now, the current layer of capping material that is on site is a gravelly, silty material that is, how to put it, just not very good. It's compacted, it's overly dense, it has a very low nutrient component, and currently plants are simply dying, even though they exist in it. And as such, after we put it a full meter below ground, which is below the typical rooting depth of most commercial crops, the roots will actually hit that layer and then start to travel laterally. So they will not penetrate that poor quality soil in all likelihood. So they will actually not have any access to the anaerobic wood residue that is at depth, and therefore they have no ability to uptake any materials that are within the wood residue.
All right, Carol, your hand's still up. All right, so that's all the questions of the delegations. But I think we have a few other comments or questions. Councillor McNulty, you wanted to ask a question of staff? Bill, you're muted.
A good report, and thank you very much for the report. I actually live on Ma Bing's farm right now, and have for a number of years. To staff, nowhere can we have the Kavanaugh guidelines in place that takes care of everything in terms of supervision of trucks and truckloads, and have an inspector on like Mr. McTavish has done and others at Kavanaugh's.
Councilor McNulty, yes, we will have that requirement on their permit.
Okay, I think that should be, and I think in future reports, if we get them, that we should have that. If they're not going to follow the Kavanaugh guidelines, don't bother bringing it forward. Number two, identifying the source of soil. As it was alluded to, there's only so much soil to go around. We're getting more and more applications of people wanting to farm. Richmond is not a source. Could staff come up with a list of places where soil can be sourced and identified, that if you're going to get it from X, Y, or Z, and we've approved Delta at the moment, but I think that should be in the report. It shouldn't be we approve something and now they go out to the hinterlands to find soil. They should say where they're going to get it, where there will be enough soil. In this case, it's 30,000 cubic meters. I don't have that information, but I would like to have that in the report, and maybe just take that under advisement so that when we get to this stage, those questions are answered and we're comfortable with it. And then we can do whatever to recommend to the ALC to go ahead or whatever and continue farming. As I asked the delegation earlier, where are we going to go from class 7 to class 1? And then it says in the report it may be class 2. I'm not a soils expert, but it's encouraging to know that at least they're going to try to remediate and go from whatever class 7 is to 1 or 2. But where are they going to get it? So those are my only comments, Your Worship.
Right.
Thank you.
Councillor Wolf. Bill, your hand's still, okay, there it's down. Councillor Wolf.
Okay. Thank you very much, Your Worship. I got 3 short questions to staff. I guess the first one for the staff member who attended the Richmond Food Security and Agriculture Advisory Committee where the discussion happened, and there were the 3 bullet points on our GP 19. I'm curious, there was no comments in there about the committee's ideas around option 1 or option 2. Was there anything to report on their advice on that?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, I can't recall what the committee's discussion was, but I can attest to that was after the discussion and the questions. This was the motion that the committee chose to pass to advise council.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Second question, one of their recommendations, which was the 3rd bullet about the performance bond, and so what they were looking for, the advice to us was a bond that's equal to the revenue from the tipping fees minus the cost to implement the farm plan. And then I see so that was on page 19, and then on page 22, it mentions that the applicant is willing to submit 30,000. So my question is, does the 30,000 equal the tipping fee minus the farm plan?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, I believe that the 30,000 is less than that amount. However, this is what the applicant is willing to put forward, given that the applicant expects to also have to provide a performance bond to the ALC. And so that, and the city cannot require this performance fee, so it was the advice of the committee that the applicant provide this, and they've chosen to provide an amount of $30,000.
I appreciate that for confirming that. Thank you. And then the last one, which I'm not sure might go to someone else. through the chair to staff. Is there a role of the city's transfer land on Sidaway beside the closed go-kart track? Is there a place at that facility that would receive wood waste? And if so, what would the city do if they had an abundance of 13,000 cubic meters of wood waste show up? Do we have a purpose or use for that?
Through the chair, I'm not sure that that's an approved use for that site. In order to move wood waste to another site, there would have to be an approval for that site to receive that. I am not sure if that's the case, and so perhaps if someone from engineering may have information, but just so councillors are aware, that approval would also have to be part of this process.
I appreciate all that. Thank you very much.
Councillor
Through the
Day.
chair, yeah, I could just add to that briefly to Councillor Wolf. We are mostly processing soils and organic materials that come out of our ditch cleaning program at Sidaway. We're not set up to handle something like wood waste right now. Something like that could be considered more broadly. We do have a council referral on a broader soil strategy, and we're including the operations we have at Sidaway in terms of any potential for those operations to be enhanced to create a made enrichment solution to address some of the movement of soils, both that need processing and clean topsoils that can be handled rather than removed.
Thank you. That's very valuable to hear. Thanks.
Okay, Councillor Day.
I'd like to refer everybody to page GP 26. In there, the applicant has proposed a $30,000 bond for 30,000 cubic meters of fill. But if you look down to the second paragraph, there was another proposal with only 17,500 meters of fill, and they would put a bond of $70,000. So that's a huge difference. And then there was one with 48,000 cubic meters, so slightly more, and they put a bond of $160,000. So
those are ALC bonds.
Okay, so how much would the bond for the ALC be then?
Through the chair, Councillor Day, we won't know that until the ALC rules on this application.
We have to approve or say no, approve or say no to this without that information.
That's correct.
All right.
All right, someone want to make a motion? So as recommended, it's been moved and seconded. Further discussion? Councillor Day, is your hand still up from your last one, or? Okay, it's down. Councillor Steves. You're muted, Harold.
I can't support it in its present form. Personally, I'd like to see us deal with the soil tracker information so we can track the soil. If we don't do that, the least we can do is what Councilor McNulty said, is to know the sources of the soil before we amend our policy. We started with the soil had to come from Richmond, then we amended it to include delta soils. We said alluvial soils, and somebody said, well, alluvial soils can be gravel and that sort of stuff. We said, no, delta and Richmond soils aren't. They may be a bit sandy, some of them, but at least they're clean. But I don't want to see us bringing soils in from Vancouver or anyplace else unless we know about it and are able to track where it comes from. And so I can't support it if we're going outside of Richmond and Delta at this time to get soil. So that's the problem I have with it. We've had, and it's largely the trucking companies that do it. But they say they truck it to their site just the same. I want to know exactly where that soil is coming from and what they're trucking to their site. So I can't support it in this one.
Councillor Wolf.
Also, will be not able to support, which I think on the floor is option 2. I didn't hear if that was confirmed. If that is the case, then yeah, I will not support it. I would much rather see option 1, or perhaps staff working with the applicant to get to a place where there's use for that wood waste. And also, we don't leave future generations with buried trash under our farms. Thanks.
All right, Councillor Day, you're going to speak again?
exactly, just like others have, to the motion that's on the floor. So I'm also concerned that we're not applying the same rules for everybody. As Councilor McNulty pointed out, what about applying the Kavanaugh guidelines as we have in the past? So I think that we either amend this, or I would be prepared to move the referral back, and let's get the answers that we're looking for. So I would make that motion.
Well, Carly, didn't I understand you to say that the Kavanaugh guidelines would be imposed into this application?
Yes, that's right. Through the chair to Councillor Day, we are imposing the same guidelines on the Kavanaugh site, on this site, which, and this is clarified in the report. I believe GP 25, you will find a confirmation of this.
But just to follow up then, that's not what the speaker of the delegation said. They said it's very difficult to get soil from Richmond and Delta, and they have a bunch of sources that they could use. So maybe we need this in writing.
Through the chair to Councillor Day, sorry, I was addressing two different matters. The measures in place to ensure that the only soil that comes onto this site is from sites that have been approved. That's one thing. We're going to do the same measures on this site as we do with Kavanaugh to make sure that only soil from approved source sites is brought onto this site. The matter of where the soil is coming from, as the applicant has stated, at this time, they have to go through the city approval and the ALC approval. It's too early for them to approve a source site. They don't know when this project is going to start. They wait until closer to the project starts to find the source sites. We as staff do not have an inventory of soils in the Lower Mainland. So this is one of the things where we rely on the professional to assure that the source sites are only sites that meet the specific requirements needed for this specific site. And that is something that the professional has to attest to. And if we have any concerns about that, we would cancel the permit.
Okay, so you have confidence in this?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, I do have confidence in our process for approved. We have not had problems yet in the last couple of years since we've adopted these new guidelines, like on the Kavanaugh site, we have not had problems with soil coming from unapproved sites.
Thank you.
So the professional would certify the appropriateness of the materials, and staff would be reviewing that. Is that correct? That's
correct.
That's what's envisioned. And is the reason for that, as opposed to saying that it has to come from Richmond or Delta, because there may not be enough soils to accumulate for this project? Is that the idea?
I believe that the applicant has answered that the applicant doesn't feel that there is enough source sites in Richmond. In terms of staff's perspective, it's staff's idea that we want to ensure that the correct soils are brought onto this site. Should there be a requirement for Richmond or Richmond and Delta soils, that would be a matter of council. But the applicant is telling us that there are not enough source sites in their opinion.
All right. So the professionals would have to certify the suitability, and there'd be a monitoring process.
That's correct.
All right. Carol, your hand's still up. Councillor Green.
To point out that we've been asking our fill applications in the last period of time to be sourcing all of their soil from Richmond and Delta, and they've been agreeing to that, and it hardly seems fair to have that as one standard, and then we come in here and say, oh, don't worry, it can be from anywhere. I'm really concerned about that. I don't have a problem with the project. It's bringing in a farmland that was rated, I think, 7, which is so bad I can't even wrap my head around it. To bring it up to a 2 or even a 1, but I'd like to see an amendment that we're asking for Delta and Richmond Richmond soils, because that's what we've been doing with everybody else.
On that point, I think it's time to hear again from, let's see, Mr. Elliott or Mr. Lamhonois about on that specific point. If you're limited to Richmond and Delta soils, which is ideal, can you do it?
That's to Councillor Green through the chair and to the chair themselves. That's a very good question. The availability of suitable topsoil in those source areas is limited. And I think this is where some of the confusion is coming from, in that we are not just talking about any soils being, and that includes subsoils. So if this were a matter of just elevating these lands and there was good quality topsoil on this site, yes, we could probably source everything from Richmond or Delta. However, because this site does not actually have any topsoil on it and is otherwise not able to grow anything, we actually have to seek out high-quality topsoil for this purpose and intent. So this will require, well, quite honestly, Barry Ma's good efforts to identify where those soils may come from. And just like Gordon Butt, myself, developed the Kavanaugh Protocol, as it is being referred to, those source site locations will be sent to us as the professionals of record. We will do a preliminary investigation for the risk profile behind that source site for various contaminants. That includes both anthropogenic and also natural contaminants, which includes metals. And if that risk level is above low, we will actually recommend analytic testing. And if analytic testing comes back and it's okay in terms of a quality sense, we will then approve it for import to the receiving site. The transit is typically governed by a truck ticketing system where you have the mileage of the truck, the load volume or an approximation thereof, and also soil characteristics. Upon arrival of said truck to the receiving site, that truck ticket is reviewed for both the mileage and the soil quality or the soil characteristics. And the on-site receiver, if they are satisfied that it does indeed match what is stated from the originating site, that material is then allowed to be deposited on the receiving site. In addition to which, there is actually a monitoring process that occurs on a bi-monthly basis or every 3,000 cubic meters, where a qualified professional does attend to site and identifies any areas of concern that are to be followed up on in a particular manner.
My question was, I think, a lot simpler than that. If you're limited to Richmond and Delta soils, can you do it?
For topsoils, that would extend this project much beyond the anticipated 2 years, and I would be challenged to find that volume of topsoil in Richmond or Delta.
Okay. Councillor McNulty.
Thank you, Worship. I'm actually very unhappy with the discussion that's taken place. I think we agreed that we are going to employ the Kavanaugh guidelines. The Kavanaugh guidelines are not subject to interpretation. They are such that everything will be monitored, not with rhetoric, but by ticket. And the only source of soil in the Kavanaugh guidelines is Richmond and Delta. And that's what I put in. We did not let Mr. Kavanaugh go anywhere else, Mr. Mayor, okay? And so if there is a having to go elsewhere, because that's what I move, then the applicant will have to come back and apply for an amendment. And we might consider changing the Kavanaugh guidelines and including other sources. So I don't know why we're discussing all of this. It's quite simple. It's Richmond Delta, answers up Mr. Steve's question, Kelly's question, and if you can't get it here, then you come back with an amendment. And you do ticketing and trucking the way he has done it. barriers and gates and everything else. Those are the guidelines. They are not to be changed. Okay? And we have every one of them. And staff need to take that under advisement. We're not making up rules as we go on. So the discussion is over. What I moved was the Kavanaugh guidelines, Richmond Delta.
No,
If anything,
no. What's on the floor is the staff recommendation. So the question
no.
is.
It
Yes,
is
that's what's
the
on the
staff
floor.
recommendation with Kavanaugh guidelines employed.
No.
Well, then I'm going to read.
If I could say.
Second amendment.
Just a minute. That's what I'm trying to get to an amendment. If you would just be patient. Carly, do the Kavanaugh guidelines specify Richmond and Delta soils?
No, Your Worship, they do not.
All right.
We have specified that for about 3 of the last 7 have required Richmond Delta soils.
But it's not in the report, it's not in the Kavanaugh guidelines, right?
That's correct.
Okay, going back to Councilor McNulty, do you want to propose an amendment to add on to the recommendation that provided that the soils are sourced from Richmond or Delta?
Yes, I would add that to
Okay,
it because
so-
that's in the guidelines.
No, staff says that's not in the guidelines.
We made him do it. We didn't give him any.
Listen, I'm sorry. I'm telling you what staff has told me. It's not in the guidelines. We're putting that into the
I allowed
motion.
it to the guidelines.
So we're now on the, is that amendment seconded? Councilor Steves?
Second.
Okay. So, listen, if you want to speak to it, I want your hands up. I'm not talking about mechanically. I'm talking about put them up this way. Okay, so the amendment is on the floor to provide that it should be sourced in Delta or Richmond. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands. All those in favor of the amendment? Sorry. I asked you to put your hand up like that. Councillor Liu wants to speak to the amendment. And then I'm going to call the question.
Thank you. I just have a question to staff on this. So the applicant claimed that they've been 8 years in the process of this. Is that true? Like, is that true?
Carly?
Through the chair to Councillor Liu, I'm not certain. I do know that we have had a large change and improvement as to how we handle these soil applications over the last couple of years. And it wasn't handled with this type of rigor prior to that, before we had a soil bylaw inspector. I'm not sure exactly how long this application has been in the system.
Okay, so potentially if we allow it to go through as it was originally written, it could take them up to 2 years to get topsoil. What he's suggesting now is it could take even more than that. It could take 3, 4, 5 years now. So potentially, if he had been working on this for 8 years already, another 2 to get topsoil, good topsoil, no matter where it's from, he's already invested 10 years into this. And now what we're suggesting is that we should delay this guy even longer than 10 years to get farming. Is that what the long and short of this is, if we force only Richmond?
That is the effect of the amendment.
Okay, so thank you.
All those in favor of the amendment, just on the amendment to make it source soil from Richmond or Delta? Those opposed? Let's see now, I'm seeing Councillor Liu and Councillor Au opposed. So that's carried.
McPhail.
Oh, and McPhail opposed. All right, so that's carried with those 3 opposed. All right, we're back on the main motion. Councillor Steves, and then Councillor McPhail. You're unmuted, Harold.
I'm sorry. Actually, I wanted to say something on the amendment, but that's over.
Okay, Councillor McPhail.
Thank you, Your Worship. Can we get a copy of the Kavanaugh guidelines then for our information for council? And then Councillor McNulty alluded to some process that if this applicant cannot get the soil, could staff confirm then if they cannot get topsoil from Richmond or Delta, what is the process for the applicant to go through? Thank you.
Do you know that offhand, or do you have to get that?
Through the chair to Councillor McPhail, I can get that. I think that this is, I would have to get back to council on that, and I apologize.
Okay, so we'll take those questions under advisement, and if you could get us the answers this week. Give us a memo. Go ahead, Harold.
Yeah, I'll phrase a question. I was going to raise this when we were talking about the amendment. We just had 3 houses knocked down in our neighborhood in the last month, and each one of them had several truckloads of topsoil taken away. Perfectly good topsoil, and we lose 500 houses every year. So while we don't have huge areas with the topsoil removed, these houses that are moved with a base, little bungalows with a base of 1,000 square feet are being expanded to 40 or whatever percent of the lot. So there's a lot of topsoil being removed. I think it's available. It's just going to take a lot of work. So I think that the Kavanaugh bylaws, they'll move the motion 2 or 3 of the applications back that it should be Richmond and Delta soil. And I think now it's time that we started figuring out where we're going to find it. And I think there's lots of it available. We really will.
Okay, doke. Harold, your hand's still up. So I'm going to call the question on the motion, which is the main motion as amended to specify the source of the materials. All those in favor? Those opposed? Those opposed. Let's see, I'm seeing Councillor Wolf and Councillor Au opposed. Anyone else opposed? So that is carried. Okay, thank you. So I think we would excuse the delegation then. All right, so the next one is the amendments to the official community plan on what goes to the school board. Someone want to move it? Moved and seconded. Harold, your hand is still up. Is that from the last one?
Yeah.
All right, so on the motion on the floor, Councillor Day.
Pleased I am that we're going to make this information available to the school district. There is the cumulative effect of development on the school system, and I think that reducing it from 295 multifamily units to 150, and from 50 school-age children to 25, and then from 200 single-family units to 60, when we now are going to do notification, is going in the right direction, and it's going to help the school district make better choices and be better prepared for what's coming, as opposed to being sideswiped. So thank you. I will totally be supporting this. Thank you.
All right, let's call the question then. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Then we get to the resolution regarding the response to the referral on regulating fencing, to take it right out of the ag zones, and then we've got some other work to do on giving the building permit provisions fourth reading. So, James Cooper, Barry Conkin, do you have anything to add to your report?
At this point, nothing further, Your Worship. We're happy to answer questions from Council on this report.
All right, Councillor Day.
Thank you. I just had a couple questions. So basically, we're going to eliminate the cement fences on farmland, and I understand that there's going to be changes, no changes really, for residential land. Can you, it says in the report that's on page GP 154 that wood and metal fences will not sag or collapse. Well, when we had this on the table a couple months ago, I brought in pictures of examples of lots of masonry fences that had cracked and broken and sagged. So why would we not have the same regulations on residential property as we are proposing on agricultural property?
Through Your Worship to Councillor Day, I'll provide an answer, and perhaps Mr. Cooper may wish to add something as well. In our view, the use of those materials in urban areas is different than the agricultural community. And the bylaw amendment that we're proposing under bylaw 1044, which is an amendment to the city's building regulation bylaw, will require a permit for those fences in future, which will in fact more than likely result in fences that won't sag because they will require a greater foundation and a permit to be reviewed and issued by Mr. Cooper's team in terms of its suitability and its long-term stability. Mr. Cooper, would you like to add anything to that?
Through your worship, Councillor Day, I'd just like to add that any building material, if not particularly well used, will be deficient. There are many examples of wood fences that sag and are ready to fall as well. I think the innovation that we're proposing is that any fence of any material that requires a concrete foundation, that will require a building permit, and then therefore we can regulate the design and workmanship as well. There's no provisions for that right now. I think this is something that will improve the workmanship of all fences in future.
Just a follow-up question to the chair. So that sounds much better than what I was imagining. A follow-up question is, if for some reason, even with all these precautions and permits, a fence starts to sag, what is the city's responsibility or ability to deal with those fences that do crack and sag?
Currently, this are not permitted through the building permit process. So it remains, if it's on a property line between two properties, that it remains a civil matter. So currently, we do not have it's fence in current bylaws are not included as a structure that is under regulation by city building bylaws. So we do not have any provisions to regulate at the moment.
And if I may add, Your Worship, in addition, if a fence were to sag towards city property, i.e. into a road allowance that posed a obstacle in the city's road dedication, we would be able to deal with that through bylaw enforcement to remove that encroachment into our road right away.
Right. Thank you.
Let's see now. Okay, your hand's up. Okay, Councillor Green.
Thank you. I'm not excited for number 3. It really ought to be option 2, where we're not permitting the masonry fences. Those giant cinder blocks and other giant concrete type materials, making essentially a fortress wall. What is the purpose of having a fortress or castle wall that's in excess of a foot or more thick in front of a residential property? Why is the city having fortress and castle walls in residential areas but not permitting them in farming areas? They ought to be the same.
First of all, are they a foot thick?
Mr. Cooper, could you?
Your Worship, Your Worship, no, the walls and thickness are not. I've not seen any that's 1 foot thick. Usually they're 2 wide thick of brick.
Please
so
keep your voice up. Speak
okay,
close to the mic.
All righty. I apologize, Your Worship. They would be generally from our observations. Any masonry fence would be less than 8 inches. It would be 2 whites or more or less 5 3/4 inches thick.
So everything that I've seen are those big concrete cinder blocks, and they're back to back, which is in excess of 12 inches. It's ridiculous. And anyway, I'm not in favor of item 3, and I'd like to move option 2.
I'm going to take a motion as written. Someone want to move it? Okay, it's moved and it's seconded. So, Councillor McPhail.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to staff. Was there any consultation with ALR landowners about the proposed changes?
Through your worship to Councillor McPhail. No, we did not directly consult with the property owners. Council gave us clear direction that we should be looking at regulating these fences, and so we have brought back the bylaws accordingly. You will recall, if I may, the fence on number 2 that was very negatively received by the general public as well. We felt that there was issues that needed to be resolved quickly on the agricultural fences, and so no direct consultation was undertaken.
No discussion with the Food Security and Agricultural Advisory Committee either?
Through your worship, no.
Okay, thank you. Just a question on the building permit process that's envisioned for a fence. Can you explain that to me? So I buy a house, the fence is falling down, I need to rebuild the fence, I'm going to build a wood fence. Now.
Through your worship to Councillor McPhail, wood fences would not require, wood fences that do not have a footing, either a pad footing or a strip footing, would not require a building permit.
What does it cost for a building permit?
About $68.
What is involved in the development variance permit for someone who wants to go that route?
Through your worship,
why would they want to go that way then?
through your worship to Councillor McPhail, we can only second guess why someone would wish to have a DUP, but if someone is committed to having a certain style of fencing on their property, contrary to any regulations approved by council, they do have the ability to vary any zoning requirements. That would include also the materials of the fence. Again, I think for the most part, those are going to be early aesthetic decisions, and that someone has a particular design vision for their property, and that's why they would choose that approach.
So beauty's in the eye of the beholder. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Howe.
Now, I go back to the original report from staff in March. And it was mentioned that in our own regulations, we do not give a definition on wall. And staff also mentioned in that report that in most cities, they do not define what is a wall. Now, I think, why don't we do that? Because as I read the most recent report, I think staff is still not recommending making a definition of wall to distinguish fence from wall. And I think in most cases, we have problems with some kind of fences because they are literally a wall, right? And so why don't we make that distinction? And I think that would also partly answer Councillor McPhail's question. Because, if we got the definition of a fence and a wall, then I think some of the design or some of the planned structure would require a permit as such. Because right now, I think it's still wide open. They're not required to make an application for a permit. So would this solve the problem if we have a good definition of a wall?
If I may, Your Worship, in our review, the definition of wall and fence is perhaps less of a concern. I believe that the recommendation Mr. Cooper is bringing forward in terms of the amendment to the city's building regulation bylaw will allow us to ensure that the permit is submitted for any structure or any fence structure that requires a larger footing. So, again, as was pointed out in response to the question about a wood fence, if you just have to pour a small, typical 4-inch round concrete plug to put a wood fence in, that won't require a permit. But if you're looking at a larger concrete-based structure, having the permit will achieve that, whether it's called a wall or a fence, because it will be regulated and will require a building permit in the future.
If I may, Your Worship, I'll just like to add. Okay.
Listen, James, you got to speak right into your microphone. We can hardly hear you.
Okay, I apologize again. Your Worship, I think when you call something a wall, I think it has to do with opacity. You can make a wood wall and call it a fence, but the referral to us was really for a materiality. We were asked to comment or make a proposal or make a decision on the use of masonry and associated materials. secure your property.
So my follow-up comment is, yes, exactly, this is the point, right? It's not the material, it's the thickness or height, of the fence, which is the problem. It could be wood structure, right? But it can be a wall, it can really a kind of seclusion. So I think that's the problem, not necessarily the material.
All right, Councillor Liu.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was walking in a neighborhood the other night, and it was a nice neighborhood, and they had masonry fences with the metal on the top. So those nice little fences wouldn't be allowed in the agricultural land space because it's got masonry on the bottom. Is that correct?
Through your worship, that is correct.
Okay, so, and no matter what, we're still limiting the fence height to 1.2 meters, right?
That is correct, Your Worship.
Okay, so whether it's agricultural land or in the neighborhoods, we're still limited to 1.2. But in our nicest neighborhoods, we've got this nice masonry with the little fence bits on top, and so that's permitted there, but it's not allowed to be as nice out on the agricultural land. What we are, and we also are not permitting brick, is that correct as well? Like the little black, like red bricks? Like they use sometimes in England and stuff, they have those nice little sinuous brick walls.
That's correct.
For 40 minutes.
So, no, sorry, I thought they were gonna answer. So, we're not going to allow that on agricultural land, but we are going to allow, say, chain link. So you can have that nice chain link like that they have at, the Harbor Authority. So remember how much we enjoyed that chain link fence down there? And so then we got them to put that stuff in so we couldn't see through it and see all their junk inside. So we're going to allow that, right?
Through your worship.
And we're gonna allow the same bars like they have at the police station?
Go ahead, James.
Okay, through your worship, no, we will not allow chain link, nor we would, I think it says decorative metals are not allowed as well.
I thought it said chain mesh fence. What's the difference between chain mesh and chain link?
Through your worship to Councillor Liu, the mesh is a welded wire mesh, which is on farmland, which is a typical agrarian type of fence to restrict livestock movement.
Okay, so like chicken wire?
It's a large version of that. It's a square pattern, and it's probably 1/8 gauge wire.
Okay, or chicken wire. They'd be allowed to have chicken wire, yeah?
I suppose they would be allowed chicken wire.
Okay, and can they have the same bars but shorter, like they have at the police station on Gilbert?
For farmland, it needs to be of an agrarian nature, through your worship.
Okay.
All right, Councillor Day.
Cat around the table, I believe that it would be appropriate for item 1, 2, and 3 to be voted on separately, Your Worship.
Oh, sure. Councillor Wolf.
The questions were also on that text.
Okay, Councillor Steves.
I guess I'm of the same opinion. I think we should pass the section of farmland. The city, and as far as the city of Richmond is concerned, we're developing into a very unfriendly city with fences everywhere. I'm not sure if we're going to curb that or not. In terms of the mesh that we're talking about with the strange terms that staff are using on the farm, we call it cage wire. And it's used for livestock, and it's quite pleasant to look at, and you can see the cows and the chickens and everything goes through it, comes through the fence. I think that it's quite viable and it's quite different from chain link, which is heavy mesh and quite ugly. So I think that, I don't know where the word cage wire comes from, but that's what we call it. But I would, then we would like to see it pass the section of the report on fences on farmland, I'm not in favor of dropping the section on city properties, but if the city's becoming so unfriendly, you begin to say, well, why bother? In about 30 or 40 or 50 years, those houses will all be locked down and we'll have apartments facing them anyway.
Harold, your hand's still up. Okay, I'm going to, just before I call the question, I just wanted to say that I can support 1 and 2, which are talking about the agricultural areas. Oops, my mic wasn't on. I can support 1 and 2 on the agricultural areas, but in terms of residential areas, I'm going to support item 3 as it's written. You know, I think that's just a matter of taste. And if you don't see that, if you don't like that, then don't have it on your house. But I sure don't see why we can't have masonry, you know, in the residential areas. So I think 1 and 2 can be called together unless anybody objects to that. And then we'll go to number 3, okay? So calling the question on 1 and 2, all those in favor? Those opposed? I've got Councillor Liu. Anyone else opposed? So, sorry, McPhail? Okay. That is carried with those, Councillor McPhail, Councillor Liu opposed. And on item number 3, all those in favor, if I could see your hands. Those opposed. Let's see, I'm seeing Councillors Day, Green, Wolf, and Steves opposed, so that's carried as well. That takes us to the Ojala matter on Williams. Someone want to move it? It's moved and seconded. Wayne Craig, Nathan Andrews, anything to add to your report?
Nothing to add, Your Worship.
Okay, Barry, you need to mute your mic.
Yes, sir. Thank you for your time, Worship.
Okay. Okay. Anybody want to talk about this? All those in favor? Anybody opposed? It's carried with Councillor Wolf opposed. And on number 7, the Cooner matter. Let's see, on Lockhart Road, that's moved and seconded. Discussion on that, Councillor Green.
Thank you. Once again, I will be opposed to tearing down a duplex. It guarantees the duplex to the south is going to go next, which means that in total we've just asked for relatively affordable family units. And the secondary suites that will be going in are not enough to substitute for that loss. We're literally demolishing the missing middle that everybody is talking about what cities need. We're literally demolishing it right now. We're going backwards, and I'm opposed to that. Thank you.
Councillor Wolf. Councillor Green, your hand's still up. Councillor Wolf.
Thank you. I oppose the last one just because of the order of the way things work here. I would like to comment to staff that looking at the past one and this current one, I'd like to know what helped the city be successful when it comes to saving trees and the hedges. So it is mentioned on page 206 that all three trees were saved on this parcel. I know the comment was that the ones in the last one were in poor condition, and that was the main reason. Still, I'm not satisfied with the conversion of that last one, the whole back half of the property from permeable to parking lot. But anyway, my question about this one is how did that, where in the discussion between staff and the developer did the comment of highlighting the hedges as part of the tree protection plan? Because I haven't seen that come about in such a way on similar proposals.
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, the primary decision point is always the health of the tree. We start with that. Once we understand the health of the tree, it's the location on the site and the site grading that determine whether or not the tree can be retained. With respect to the difference between the two applications, the trees on the previous application were all deemed to be in poor condition. They had all been previously topped. This tree on this site is in good condition and is located in an area where we can be easily retained.
And mainly the point on the hedges, because I know this property doesn't have a lane in the back like the last one did, but that's where there's parking back there on Yellow. But what about the hedges?
Through the chair to Councilor Wolf, with respect to the hedges are outside the building envelopes. They're not formally protected by the tree protection bylaw, but they are located in an area which is easily retained in the front yards. They also would aid in the screening of the property, so there wasn't a hard discussion with the developer to have those two hedges retained.
Okay, so then just to follow up on that is, they did say that the hedges are going to be part of the tree protection plan. So does that mean that they will be putting the fences up, or will staff be requesting that they do that, if indeed that is protection?
Chair to Councilor Wolf, yes, if they are identified for retention of the tree protection fence, they must go up.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much.
Councilor Day.
I actually missed that this was a duplex, so I thank Councilor Green for alerting me to that. It says on page GP 204 that there's a non-conforming 2-unit dwelling on the site, which means duplex. Staff, that's correct, right?
Through the chair to Councilor Day, yes, there is.
Okay. Yeah, and one side is occupied by the previous owner of the property, and the other side is vacant. What would stop a developer from coming in and rebuilding that? It says it's non-conforming, but could a builder come in, tear down that duplex, which is probably a fourplex, and rebuild a fourplex on the same footprint?
Through the chair to Councilor Day, no, they could not. The site is not zoned to allow a duplex. It's zoned for a single-family home. It's a historical anomaly. Back in the 60s, I believe it was, the city's zoning bylaw allowed you to build a single-family home or a duplex if a lot was of a certain width, which this would have qualified for. There was a grandfathering period where we did allow applicants or property owners to submit rezoning applications to legitimize those duplexes. That didn't occur with this site. In order to rebuild a duplex on the site would need to be rezoned.
Okay, so they couldn't just kind of tear down the studs and rebuild it and call it a renovation?
Through the chair, that would not be considered a demolition. As long as they kept the existing structure, they could renovate the interior of it. They would not be able to expand upon the size of the existing structure, but interior renovations would be fine.
And would that allow, if that would happen, would there be allowed to be 2 basement suites and 2 upper-level suites?
Through the chair, no, because the site is not zoned for that. You would only be allowed to have one dwelling unit on the property with a secondary suite if it was rebuilt, or the duplex that exists now.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Councilor Steves. Carol, your hand's still up. Councilor Steves.
I will be supporting this. However, I would draw council's attention to page 210. And if you look at the map of the drawing and see how small the duplex is compared to the 2 houses immediately to the left and to the right, we're talking about topsoil here. There's going to be a huge amount of topsoil removed from that site. Secondly, I refer staff to, I think, a number of referrals that Councilor Day and I have made over the last decade or so. A 1960s building is built with the most incredible old growth fir, and it'll all be crunched and lost someplace to be recycled as wood chips to burn, which I think is what happened in 3 houses with 60s houses with my neighborhood lately. In Vancouver, it's been on the TV for the last several nights. They were requiring houses to be demolished and taken apart board by board and nail by nail. And I'd certainly like those referrals to come back to tell us how we can do that as well. So for now, I would support this, but because we've been improving it all along the street and elsewhere wherever the duplexes have been. Most of the 60s duplexes ended up as fourplexes. There's still probably 2 or 3 dozen of them around. I know several myself, and they've been bringing in revenue to the owners for years. We totally ignored them because they were providing low-cost housing. And effectively what we're going to do here is we're going to lose some low-cost housing for 2 very high-cost replacement houses. But that has to be because we were improving everywhere else as well. It's too late to stop it now. But just for those points, there's going to be good topsoil there. and it may be too late to require it right now, but that buildings like that should be 100% this battle of recycled.
All right, Councillor Green, Harold, your hand's still up.
I'd just like it to make a referral after this motion.
All right, we'll call the question then on the motion. All those in favor? Anybody opposed? It's carried with Councillor Green opposed. What is your referral?
For staff to investigate how to make existing duplexes conforming, because they're all non-conforming right now, so to just make them legal in the place that they already exist.
Is there a seconder?
I'll second that.
All right. Okay, anybody want to speak to that? All right, let's call the question. All those in favor? Anybody opposed? Well, Carol, what are you waving your hands about?
To speak to the motion, to the referral.
Well, speak.
I think that, thank you, I will. Staff have pointed out a gray area where we no longer allow fourplexes, duplexes to become legal. But we did there for a while, as Councillor Steeves has pointed out. I think this motion would go a long ways to saving affordable housing, because right now this house cannot be rebuilt on the same footprint and be a legal fourplex, and that's a darn shame. I think it's a waste of materials, and I think it's a real loss of affordable housing. So in my mind, this is an excellent referral that we should find a way to allow these non-conforming fourplexes to become conforming and legal in 2020.
All those in favor? Those opposed? It's carried with Councillor Liu opposed. Kelly, Carol, your hands are still up. Mass wearing in city buildings. I'll ask staff if there's anything to add to the report.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Brody. I'd just like to add in regards to the recommended option 3, I'd like to add that another exception is recommended to address when children and caregivers are in a child care setting. In this case, the recommendations from the BC Centre for Disease Control for the use of masks in a child care setting would apply specifically.
All right. So it would be the recommendation as specified, provided that there be a further exception. Sorry, you gave us this on paper and I don't have it.
Further exception for children and caregivers in a child care setting.
All right, let's get that on the floor. So, okay, so that's
moved.
All right. Councilor McNulty, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. I'm very happy to see my referral come back in this manner. With regard to the utilization of masks, I think staff did a very good job coming up with the options that are possible. I think option 3 is what we really need is a semi-restrictive. I think the key here is to respect each other and show leadership for safety. 83 or to 85% of the people in Canada think that masks are a good thing. Making them mandatory, I think, is important among staff, but more importantly among the public. I think, if I may, Your Worship, I'm assuming, and staff correct me, that the public will be required to have a mask coming into our public buildings, and where they're coming in to talk to an attendant or whatever. I'm assuming that is already entering any facility that we have that is not part of the work site. And I think, is that not correct?
Through the chair to Councilor McNulty, yes, that is correct. If the public arrives at the building, they should arrive wearing a mask.
Yeah.
In the few cases where somebody may not, we would provide them a mask.
Well, I think also kudos for having the exceptions. To me, they're all common sense, to be quite frank with you. And obviously, we would allow those that you have on page 229. I think it's extremely important. I think we're seeing more and more as we continue in this pandemic, and it's not going away. It's going to be with us for a number of years. I think more and more the utilization of the mask is coming to the forefront as one of the prime precautions in this pandemic, as well as the other. We can't underestimate the other, but I think it's extremely important. I don't think we even need to consider going to option 4 because I don't think it does anything. I think, generally speaking, from what we've heard from the public, that option 3 will suffice. People are already, to be the most part, honoring it. When I go to the drugstore or I go to the Safeway store, 9 out of 10 people are already wearing a mask. In there, not only the employees, but also the public coming in and out of it. So it's happening in businesses as well, and I think we will get the businesses. For those of us who remember, no shirt, no shoes, no service. Remember that, okay? No mask, no service as well. So that I think it's been outlined very well. So kudos to staff, and I hope all of council will supply it. I'm also assuming that when you come to City Hall, you supply your own mask for a public facility. There is no reason why we need to supply masks.
Through the Mayor to Councilor McNulty, we would generally request people bring masks, but in the odd case where they may not, we will have a supply.
So in our education and communication and our signage, we will expect to say you will be providing, expected to be providing your own mask.
That's correct.
Okay. Super. Okay, thank you very much. Good job. I hope all of council will support it.
Councillor Day.
To the chair, this week I spent 3 days in the hospital with my 82-year-old mother doing all the tests, and I can tell you that these exemptions are very, very important, and staff have done an excellent job. When someone has dementia or has trouble breathing or wears eyeglasses and hearing aids, it's just a darn challenge to wear a mask. And so I'm really pleased that we've made these exceptions. I did have one question, though. One of the things it says is, underneath communication challenges include individuals who rely on lip reading are unable to communicate. So I bring in my 82-year-old mother, and she has to talk to someone, and she doesn't have me to help her. Will the staff be allowed to lower their mask, to say what they need to say, and get it right back up again?
Through the chair to Councilor Day, as with all rules in our facility, we would ask our staff to use good judgment. So in that particular case, we would expect our staff to move themselves at least 6 feet away from the person, or move themselves behind a plexiglass barrier, and then have that conversation with the mask pulled down or off. But certainly there is going to have to be good judgment used by our staff, as is expected in many cases.
Well done. Thank you for your hard work. Really appreciate it.
Councillor McPhail.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to staff. You just mentioned good judgment. So will there be staff training then? Or staff to understand the different abilities that people may present?
Yeah, through the chair to Councilor McPhail, yes, that's our intention, is to provide staff with training, both in terms of who should and shouldn't be wearing a mask, and also how best to work with the public. And we know our staff do a very good job of that and interpret many rules in our facilities in the best ways that they can all the time.
Thank you. Can you tell me what enforcement will look like? I was speaking with someone the other day who took SkyTrain, and she was really surprised that there was a few people who didn't have masks. And we've seen in the media that transit is saying, don't, especially there's been this a fight on a bus or something, don't talk to people about wearing a mask. So what are we going to do if people come to our facilities and they don't want to wear a mask?
Through your worship to Councilor McPhail, so our recommended option 3, recommends refusal of service should somebody who we would expect to wear a mask, so isn't one of those exceptions, we would expect to refuse service to them. Now again, we would be working with them to, if they didn't have a mask or didn't have means for a mask, we would be providing them. So there are lots of opportunities for people to comply before we got to that stage.
All right, thank you. So are we providing masks to our staff then, right now?
Through the Mayor to Council McPhail, in many circumstances, we are providing masks to our staff. They are available upon request. And as we move forward with implementing masks for all of our staff in many more circumstances, we will be providing each of them with reusable masks.
And is there a budget implication?
Through the Chair to Council McPhail, we can accommodate it within the current operating budget.
All right, thank you. Just one last question. What does the communication plan look like? Because, it's going to have to be broad to reach our whole community, and maybe in another language or two.
Through the Chair to Council McPhail, so as you've mentioned, it will be broad and multifaceted. So we're working with a variety of different teams. It will include signage. It will include key messages for staff. It may include other elements. Certainly it will include our website, but it may include some broader publications. We're working towards that right now.
Thanks very much. I'll support the recommendation on the floor.
All right. Thank you. Councillor Howe.
Yes, Your Worship. I just want to recommend that when we go out to the public for education and communication, I think we have to be very clear about what kinds of buildings we are talking about. I mean, because many people mix up with the different kinds of buildings, and we have to help them to get to know what do we mean by our city facilities. I think that's one thing we have to do.
Let's ask Serena about that.
Through the Mayor to Councillor Howe, yes, we have considered that, and we will need to be specific. And primarily, we are looking at community, where the public and staff interact in community facilities, including City Hall and many others. Facilities where we have a separate operator, for instance, we spoke about childcare previously, where we might have a childcare operator, they would be looking to their governing authority for their mask regulation.
Yes, thank you.
When I look at the restrictive option, which is number 4, the one in red, that would be like our smoking bylaw. Nowhere in public, you can't be anywhere in public unless you have a mask. So we're not talking about it being like that, as I understand it. We're talking when you go into our community center, into City Hall, our actual city facilities. Have I got that distinction correctly?
Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor Brody. Yes, that's correct.
All right. So I think we got the motion on the floor. Bill, you made the motion before.
So I made the motion, Your Worship.
Yeah.
Can I just ask, I forgot to ask, is when will we implement this? As soon as possible, I hope, but how long do we need to train staff and what have you?
Yes.
By November 1st?
Through the Mayor to Councillor McNulty, we will implement as quickly as possible once Council has made the final decision. It may take us some time to move forward with the training and the provision of masks, etc. So we'll certainly be moving forward as quickly as we can, but I'd like to avoid putting a specific date on it at the moment.
Right.
Could we have maybe a suggestion closer to Monday? Do we need a month? Do we need 6 weeks or whatever?
Yeah, through the Mayor to Councillor McNulty, it would be less than a month, certainly.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. So I moved it all, Your Worship.
Yeah, it's on the floor. I think that's an important point about the implementation date, but in fact, we can implement part of it right away. I mean, it doesn't take a lot of education to say to someone coming into the community center, you gotta have a mask.
Wear a mask, exactly.
But there are some circumstances, many circumstances, which are far more complex than that, training of staff, et cetera, so that'll take some time. All right, I'm gonna call the question on this motion. All those in favor? Anybody opposed? All right, so that is carried. And I'll have a motion to adjourn. All right, we're now adjourned, but we've got a finance committee meeting to call up. Yes, Alexis says the fun never ends, and I agree. All right, I'll call the Finance Committee meeting to order. May I have a motion on the minutes? Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Any opposed? It's carried. Deferring the CPI increase to the consolidated fees bylaw. Ivy, do you want to add anything to your very fine report?
Mr. Chair, no, there's nothing to add.
So moved.
Okay, so it's moved and seconded. Ivy, on this one, and this will be the case for a future one, I think it's DCC's. Okay, so we don't add the cost of living this year. So next year, we don't make up that ground, or we do make up that ground?
To the chair, we don't make up that ground unless you choose to add both the 2021 and the 2022 increases all as one lump sum.
Okay, so
That's a choice, yeah.
But normally it doesn't come back to us. Don't you just add the increment as directed by council policy without coming back to us? Or do you bring it back to council every time?
I bring it back to council every year.
All right, so we can address that next year. I presume we'll probably just skip a year and just have the cost of living from this year to next year, but we'll see. All right, any comments, questions? All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Permissive property tax exemptions. Ivy, anything to add to your report?
Nothing new to add.
Move the recommendation.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion by anybody? All those in favor? Any opposed? It's carried. Revised consolidated 5-year financial plan. Melissa, anything to add to your report?
Nothing to add, Your Worship.
Move the recommendation.
Moved and seconded. So no tax increase with these. And basically, we've approved them one by one over the year. Now it's just kind of a consolidated version, right?
That's correct, Your Worship.
Okay. I don't see anyone asking to speak, so I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. And finally, the development cost charges imposition bylaw. Venus?
Move option 1.
Okay. Venus, anything to add?
No, I've got nothing to add.
So it's the same question. Next year, are we making up for what we didn't collect this year, or will you be bringing it back to us and we'll decide at that point?
Yeah, through the chair, similar to the consolidated fee bylaw, we will bring it back every year for council approval of the increase. The only difference with DCC is that any annual inflationary increase is only up to the max of the CPI for the previous year. So we may not be able to recoup 2 years sort of inflationary increase in the same setting. However, in 2022, which is 1 more year from now, or from next year, we do have a major opportunity for DCC major update, and that's the time when pretty much everything can be cleaned up.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think you raise a good point. If next year we're limited to the cost of living increase from this year, it's going to be unlikely we're going to be able to make this up. So just,
that's correct.
I'm not speaking against it. I think we should just go into it understanding that we're basically waiving it for the year, probably. All right, any comments? Councillor Day.
Look at the chart on SIN 36 where it shows the Richmond construction values being significantly high in the second quarter. I'm trying to see where the actual loss in revenue would be from not increasing the DCCs. So, sorry, I see the total difference, but increase. So I don't see a total anywhere. What are we losing? In the last one, we were going to lose $225,000. How much are we going to lose if we don't put the VCC charge increase in?
Return to Councillor Day. The DCC collection obviously is based on the building permit activity. And for the last couple of years, using the trending from the last couple of years, we on average receive about 14 million in DCC contributions. So therefore, we have presented that the estimated loss in DCC contributions would be about $1 million if we didn't increase it by the 2.3% that we could have under the legislation.
Given that these are development cost charges, I won't be supporting this because that $1 million goes a long ways. And, you know, this isn't, you know, somebody paying an extra tax on their swimming lessons. This is development, and this just gets passed on to the consumers. So I don't know that we should waive it this year. I think we should do what we normally do.
All right, any other speakers? All right, we'll call the question then. All those in favor? Those opposed? It's carried with Councillors Wolf, Steves, and Day opposed. All right, and Green. Okay, so I think that's it. I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. We're now adjourned. Thank you.